TCU can be the flagship of the Big 12 Conference, but they have to win to do it.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Steven Simcox. I've been covering TCU athletics for the past 12 years. We're brought to you today by FanDuel. New customers at FanDuel.com or on the FanDuel app, you get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's right. You place a $5 bet, that bet wins. You get up to $200 in bonus bets. Give FanDuel a try today. I'll tell you more about them later on in the show. Vincent Johnson, a four-star offensive line prospect. He tells Steven Johnson of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram that TCU is currently his number one school, which is good news for the Frogs as they continue to try and build the 2026 class. But we start today with this. TCU can be the flagship program of the Big 12, but they're going to have to win on a consistent basis to do it. The reason I bring this up, a few days ago, one of our listeners, YouTube viewers, chimed in the YouTube comments, which is a great way to communicate with me in the show. You can also hit me up on X at Simcox Steven. I love to hear from you guys. I've said before, this is an interactive program. Robert Solis, he asked, what do you think about Tim Fitzgerald saying neither TCU nor Baylor can be the flagship of this conference because of their size? Tim Fitzgerald, if you didn't know, has for a long time covered Kansas State and does a really good job doing it. He's a writer. He also appears on podcasts and has his own podcast. So he says TCU and Baylor cannot be the flagship program of the Big 12 because of their size. I disagree with that. Now, I don't want to really talk about the Baylor angle because I don't care. But the TCU angle, I'll discuss that. TCU is not your traditional blue blood, right? We all know that. We can be honest here. But ever since Texas and Oklahoma left, the popular question that a lot of people have asked, who is going to be the new standard bearer for the Big 12? Who's going to lead this conference? Which football program is going to fill in that power vacuum and be the team that is the odds-on favorite every 9 out of 10 years, right? And there's arguments for a bunch of different schools. The Texas schools that are left over, TCU, Tech, Baylor, you bring Houston in. Well, you're in a great location for recruiting. You've got resources. You have athletic departments that want to be good at sports, that are committed even in this new era of NIL, where fundraising and everything is crazier than ever. They want to be known for having great athletic programs. Oklahoma State has had some success under Mike Gundy. A little bit of an understatement. They've had a lot of success with Mike Gundy. Again, very committed to having success. You got big state schools like Kansas State, Iowa State, BYU, tons of resources there. Colorado has Dion. There's a number of different programs that feel like they have the opportunity to get this done. Now, Arizona State jumps up and wins the Big 12 in year one. Okay? And so far, it looks like if the Big 12 has an identity in this post-Texas and OU departure, it's a league of parity. It's a league where anybody can win on any given Saturday. The teams are pretty even, and you don't know what's going to happen. And there's some advantages to that. I think from an entertainment standpoint, that's awesome. You can tune into a Big 12 game every week and watch an exciting competitive football matchup. That's really good for the league. But we know that college football exists and is powered by brand names, by schools that win year after year after year. But to say that TCU couldn't be the flagship program of the Big 12 is really silly to me. Because, okay, if your argument is, well, the school is simply too small, the least amount of undergrads in the conference, not a huge leaving alumni base, and just to be fair, not a big-time connection with people outside of the school, right? All these big state schools, and you have friends and family that never went to Texas that root for the Longhorns. Okay. Nothing wrong with that. But I'm just saying there's a lot of people at these big brand name programs that are associated with those schools that had nothing to do with the schools themselves. There's people listen to this podcast or watch this show that didn't go to TCU. Maybe you don't have a direct connection to TCU. You're just a fan of the football program. That's awesome. Thank you for supporting TCU. But I don't think TCU has a large collection of people like that. And so that affects the numbers as well. But here's the thing. Who in the Big 12 as it's currently constructed really does? As I said earlier, Iowa State and Kansas State, yeah, they're big state schools, but they don't have a history of success. I mean, K-State in the post-Bill Snyder era has had consistent success. Yes, they have. But Bill took over the worst college football program like in the history of college football when he got there. He turned it around. Chris Kleiman has come in and done a really nice job. But I don't think Kansas State is a national brand. I don't feel like Iowa State's a national brand. Colorado right now with Deion Sanders is a huge brand name. They're going to draw a lot of eyeballs. Okay. But it's about Deion Sanders, even Colorado, which is a very history-rich program. All of the hype, all of the attention, everything surrounding the Buffaloes program right now is centered around Deion. If and when he decides to leave, things are going to change drastically for them. Utah, state school, good following, but not just a massive national brand. The new schools that jumped in, I mean, Houston, UCF coming over from the group of five, trying to figure it out. Cincinnati's in the same boat. Arizona State. Again, regional fan bases, regional schools. The only one that you can really say has a national following is BYU because of their association with the LDS Church. And they do have a great fan base. If I do a show that talks about BYU and how it relates to TCU, it's going to get a lot of views. BYU is going to be drawing great TV numbers. There's going to be really good interest in what they're doing. But that's the only one I can honestly think of. If I'm missing one, hit me up here. But my point is this. Since there's not a school that I would consider a blue blood, and what I mean by that, there's different definitions of it. To me, it's simply this. Whether or not you're good, you're going to be covered. You're going to get attention. Ohio State and Michigan, does it help if they're good? Yes, it does. But even if those teams are bad, they're going to get talked about. There's not really many schools or any schools in the Big 12 as it's currently constructed that fall in that category. But TCU is not this no-name program. I hear both sides of it from you guys, and I love that because I think it means I'm doing something right. Some of you think I have this mentality of just little old TCU and, woe is us, what can we do? That's not what I think. TCU played in the national championship game a few years ago. They won a Big 12 title. Was it a shared title? Yeah, but they won a Big 12 title. They've been knocking on the door of the college football playoff before. Pre-Big 12, they were one of those group of five schools that made everybody respect and pay attention to them. They won a Rose Bowl. I'm saying they. You know what I mean? There's history here. Is most of it concentrated in the last 25 years? Yes. But there's history here. There's a reputation, and it's been good. But TCU's problem over the last decade has been just the hills and valleys that they've traveled through. You play in the national championship game, you turn around, you go 5-7. 2014, 2015, you're knocking on the door of the college football playoff. You win a conference title in 2014. 2016 through 2019, really, with the exception, I guess 2016, then you had a really good year in 2017. 2018 through 2020 were mediocre seasons. There just hasn't been consistency there. And so because of that, aside from that national championship run or that national championship appearance run, TCU has been largely anonymous. But when they win, they get noticed. The best month of my show ever was the lead up to and the eventual upset of Michigan in the college football playoff. And for those 10 days before the Georgia game, everybody was talking about TCU. It was a historic moment in the landscape of college football. A team that nobody really gave a chance, even though they should have, on a neutral field, took down Michigan. If you win, people will notice. That's the key for TCU. If they can start putting together a consistent winning ball club, then yes, they can be the flagship of this conference. Because fans will understand, man, they're doing something right over there. You got to respect it. Even if it's a small fan base. When TCU's been put in good time slots, when there have been standalone games, or late at night on a Saturday, they've done well from a rating standpoint. People have tuned in to watch. Sonny Dykes runs a fun offense, score a lot of points. There are things to like about TCU and where they're at, but it comes down to winning. And it circles back to an idea that I've talked about a lot this offseason, which is this is a very important year for TCU football. It feels like everything's lining up your way. And you need to start taking back control of the narrative and saying, you know what? Okay, we had a stumble out of the gates after that outstanding season in year one of the Sonny Dykes era, but closed last season strong. We're building on that. We're ready to be back where we need to be. That's the key for TCU. Go win games. Go beat North Carolina in the season opener. Take down SMU in week 3. Upset Kansas State on the road for the first time in a few years. Take down Iowa State. Take down Colorado. Demand that people pay attention to you. And if you do that, people will come around. And they will. And they'll watch. And yeah, in that case, you can be the flagship program of the Big 12. You just got to go earn it. And TCU has done a really good job in the past of making that happen. When we come back, a 4-star offensive lineman says TCU is his number 1 school right now. Frog's got to pull him in. I tell you about FanDuel all the time, and I should, because they've just been so loyal, so great, and they're always having these great deals. You might say to yourself, I don't know anything about this. I don't want to jump into this world. Listen, this is low pressure, low risk. One $5 bet as a new customer at FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. You hit on that bet, you get $200 in bonus bets. Give yourself some money at the beginning to work with. The NBA playoffs are in full swing. It's happening each and every night. There's highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever before to play smart and win big. You can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel. They're the official sports betting partner of the NBA and a proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. So 2 weeks ago, I told you about Vincent Johnson Jr., a 4-star offensive lineman who plays his high school ball at Sulphur Springs. There's a lot of reasons to be excited about him, but probably the biggest one is that he's 6'5" and 310 pounds. He just has that type of size that you can't teach, that frame that you can't teach. He's a tackle. He's a 4-star talent. He's going into his senior year at Sulphur Springs. He had an official visit, and he told Stephen Johnson of the Fort Worth Star Telegram that he had a great time. The visit was great. I was there with my family. We really enjoyed it. My favorite thing about the visit was getting to talk with the coaches and learn about the academic sides of the school. TCU is my number one at the moment. He's the number 40 ranked prospect in the state of Texas, according to 247 Sports. He's an all-state preseason selection in the 4A classification. He says he's looking for a school that gives him a chance to make it to the next level. Now, he does have an official visit later on this summer with Baylor. He wants to get this commitment locked in before the season starts. That's what he told the Telegram. As a lot of these big-time prospects do now. You don't want this hovering over your life and your decision-making as you go into your senior year. You want to have that freedom to say, okay, I know where I'm going to college. I know what I'm doing next. Now I can be where my feet are. I can put all my energy and all my effort into having a great senior season. But I said this a few weeks ago when I talked about Vincent Johnson. TCU has done a good job of recruiting under Sonny Dykes. They have, especially at the skill positions. And I think they've done a good job with the offensive line finding a number of developmental projects, guys that aren't ready-made right-away players, but not many offensive linemen are. They've taken a numbers approach to it by saying, hey, let's go heavy at that position group. And whoever shows that they can do it and whoever develops, those will be the players that get opportunities. This is the type of player, the type of prospect that TCU just hasn't been able to land. And that's been across multiple regimes. But in the Sonny Dykes era where they've had success recruiting, especially at the skill spots, I feel like I do multiple shows every year about, okay, here's this 4-star or 5-star offensive tackle that's a can't-miss type of player, and they just don't end up landing him. There's a few reasons for that. The biggest one is it's rare to find young linemen who are so ready this early. And so the market for them from an NIL perspective is pretty crazy. And to me, the biggest difference between the SEC and the Big 12 is in the trenches. And the SEC has shown through the years that they know how to develop offensive linemen, get them in the NFL, and allow them to have long careers. And so it's not shocking that a lot of those types of players would gravitate towards that. But right now, Vincent Johnson says TCU is his number one. And it doesn't appear at the moment that you're competing with Alabama or Georgia or somebody like that. You're competing with Baylor. And Baylor has made some changes, it seems like, in their NIL structure and has been more competitive on the recruiting trail lately. But this is a battle that you can win. And I just believe TCU has to put a lot of energy and effort and resources into making sure you can lock down a kid like this. Because this is a special player, a special talent. Watching his tape, he's got good feet. He gets in a good spot from a pass protection standpoint. He doesn't allow people to just run past him. He's able to use that big frame to get leverage. And then in the run game, he's what you want in an offensive lineman. He's got a mean streak to him. He's going to drive people off the ball. He's going to drive people out of the screen. He's there to open up rushing lanes for your offense. So we've heard this story before. But this, I think it is important this was an official visit and that he's talking about it afterwards, because sometimes we hear about, that big-time prospect that he would just make a bunch of unofficial visits to TCU because he's in the DFW area. It's close by. He can kind of pop in there anytime he wants, get whatever he needs from the coaching staff currently, and then he can still commit elsewhere. But this was an official visit with the intention of, hey, I want to figure out what's next for me. I want to see who these people are, what this coaching staff is talking about. And I think that's an important distinction when we talk about the difference between this situation and maybe some others in the past. But bottom line is, you got to get him to commit. And it appears he's going to at least take that visit down the road to Baylor to see what they have to offer as well. Hopefully when the dust settles, he makes the right choice and ends up at TCU. When we come back, will Josh Hoover's academic status help TCU next season? Somebody hit me up. I still call it Twitter. I know it's called X. I can't bring myself to do it. I don't know why. It just still sounds very strange to me. But Tim Finch asked me on Twitter, do you think with Josh Hoover graduating, it will impact his focus on the field positively or negatively, or do you think it'll have any effect? I think if it has any effect, it will be positive. Now, I will say this. I'm going to try to ask around and maybe give you a more robust and informed answer later on. I would love to talk to some athletes and some parents about what the academic side of things looks like at this point when we talk about college football. And I don't say that because I think these guys are very committed to whatever degrees they're trying to get, but they're just so busy with the football part of it now. I mean, it really is almost like the NFL in that it's a full-time gig. So how much time can they allocate towards the studying part of it when there's just so much of their time that's focused on nutrition and working out and making sure they have all the play calls down and watching film and breaking down. I mean, there's just so much happening on a week-to-week basis. I would love to know more about what the academic side of it even looks like at this point. But I think if it does anything, it allows him and kind of frees him up to extend more energy into football. And Josh strikes me as a guy, from what we've heard and what we know about him, that loves to put the work in that regard and isn't going to, cut corners, right? So I think that's good news. One recruiting note before we move on to something else. Joseph Credit, who's a linebacker that TCU really liked, he committed to Kansas today. So they missed out on that guy, at least for now. We'll see if they try to keep communication open. But he's a good player, very physical. I liked the athleticism that he brought to the table as well. So disappointed they couldn't get, the commitment there, but he is still, there's still time to continue to foster that relationship if they want to. And we'll see kind of where they go now at inside linebacker. They've been very heavy on edge rusher, defensive end type so far for this 2026 class. What are they prioritizing from a, more traditional linebacker spot throughout the rest of this recruiting cycle to see what's next? On yesterday's show, I discussed Bill Belichick, and there's a report from Pablo Torre circulating around right now that there's a lot of tension and chaos between the North Carolina administration and Bill Belichick, and most of it centers around his relationship with Jordan Hudson, his current girlfriend, and her involvement in his business and in his life and in the UNC program in general. And Pablo Torre is saying that because Bill Belichick's buyout dropped from $10 million to $1 million on June 1st, there's a world, he said it was a real chance that maybe Belichick doesn't make it to the season. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think he makes it to the season because I still maintain that the reason he's doing this is to get back in the NFL. And the only way that he's going to get back in the NFL and get where he wants to be is if he shows NFL teams that he can do this job currently at a very high level. But Jacob Langford commented on that program and said that if it did happen, it would drop ticket prices significantly in Chapel Hill. Yes, it would. It would be a horrible situation for UNC. I mean, that's stating the obvious, but they don't have a prototypical interim coach right now on that staff. Outside of Belichick, there's not a ton of, there's NFL experience there, but there's nobody that just jumps out at you as, okay, this is the person that could come in and hold it together while everything is unfolding. I guess Freddie Kitchens kind of fits that mold. Steve Belichick, his son, I think if Bill leaves, Steve will probably be out the door with him. So in some ways it would be good for TCU, but I think ultimately TCU needs that spotlight. They need that opportunity to play on a huge stage to open their season against a Power 4 opponent and against a really good coach who will give them a better idea of how teams are going to attack them and go after them moving forward. We will be back tomorrow. 2 more shows this week. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also find us on your favorite podcast platform. We're free and available everywhere you get your podcasts.